Shalom. This is Truth is Everlasting, Lion's Den. I am Yahweh Sop. I camp our Lion Den, Hawan Ben Yashawada in Jacksonville, Florida. But first, I'd like to give a prayer to the Father, to the Son, to the elders, to the archons, and to the women and children. Kal Halayim La Yahweh Bahashem Yahweh Shai. Bahashem Ha Rogak Rodash Mahamath, in the name of Yahweh Shai, in spirit and holy and in truth. Double honors to the elders of GMS. Double honors to my elder Hawan. Salutation to the archons who are the four corners of the earth. And to the women and children. Shalom. Okay. Breaking news. UFO whistleblowers drop bombshell to Washington, D.C. Woo, it's going to be an interesting one. And the title of this lesson, They Are Not UFOs. Here we go.
Multiple UFO whistleblowers came forward to share their story at the press club. Dr. Stephen Greer, his disclosure project, of course, you'll remember many moons ago, over a decade ago, he held one of these events before, and he kind of started off by explaining that the world kind of wasn't ready for that press conference at the time. Members of Congress and so forth weren't really ready for the disclosure, and the people that came forward, those testimonies that came forward that day at that event. So this whole event took over 3 hours, close to 4 hours, with jaw-dropping moments. Bombshell moments. I want to show you a number of those moments now, and I'm going to save the most amazing, what I believe is the most amazing, for the end. So you got to stick around for this. So anyway, Dr. Greer started off by explaining that they know these are the things they've turned over to Congress, Senate, and the White House for part of this testimony. Here's the list of things that they sent out, which is the Disclosure Project slide, Project Intelligence Archive, and contains government documents from the United States, Canada, Australia, Russia, the UK, and more. 145 top secret bases, 752 witnesses from military, corporate, government solutions, files with witness testimony and some video with supporting documents and information, 121 UF crash retrieval cases. Some documents includes name of witness, et cetera, et cetera. So he went through all of this, explaining that this is the stuff they were handing over. Here is Dr. Stephen Greer, though, showing the map locations of these secret bases in the United States. Look at the number of secret military bases inside the United States and what's being worked on at these secret military bases from witnesses who've come forward and have actually worked at these bases. Watch.
Operations have happened. I'm saying illegal because we can prove that this information, as Senator Inouye said, you'll hear his statement in a moment, has been run by a very shadowy, deep black operation. And we're not talking the legal black budget of the United States. We're talking about projects that presidents and CI directors and secretaries of defense and members of the Congress who have a need to know and are cleared TSSCI in SCIFs, secure compartmented information facilities, have been blatantly either gaslit, denied access. That is the foundation of everything we've done, is that these projects are a priori illegal and therefore unconstitutional and have to be reined in, because not doing so is a threat to the national security. So here's your list. I'm not going to go through 145 sites. Some of them are black sites. Some of them are bases you know about, like Wright-Patterson, Edwards, Nellis, Area 51, so-called. But all of them are based on witness testimony and intelligence we've gathered over the last 30 years. And it's time for it to be disclosed.
So someone in the chat says, Clayton, I can't believe, why are you spreading this garbage? It's not garbage. This is perhaps one of the biggest stories of all time. And on top of it, it is a crime. These are crimes that are being committed against Americans. People, mass murder, abduction, witness tampering, whistleblower tampering. The list is endless, and we're going to go through all of these crimes in just a moment. And people whose lives have been ruined as a result of it, being forced to sign non-disclosure agreements, members of the military who've had their lives destroyed as a result of this. So I care about the veterans. I care about these people who worked on these projects and have had their lives ruined. And also, it's one of the biggest stories of all time. And so when you say propaganda, what you need to understand is there's many levels to this that we all must understand and unpack this. So there's misinformation that's being pushed out on this, right? There's clouds of deceit that have been pushed out on this in order to distract you from certain things. But these people are real, and these projects are real, and we just better get over that. Like, just stop saying that. Just let's move on from that. It's now here. It's fact. We have this information. These people have come forward. We are in the second phase of it. That ship has already sailed. So here is Dr. Stephen Greer.
Can I just push you on this map that he has with all the red dots? These are bases that are actively working on UFO projects. These are not just sightings, right? Because
these are military bases. Many of them we know, right? Patterson Air Force Base, Edwards Air Force, but some of these but then many of them on this map are black sites that we don't know about. So that was included in this map. So, and he also showed around the world. So these are not just United States military bases. These are black sites in other parts of the world.
In other countries, because he mentions Russia, but then when you look at the map, I'm just playing it back. There's no bases in Africa at all. None in the Middle East
that we know of.
One in Pakistan
that we know of.
Okay, yeah. All right. I'm just curious about.
So I don't know on all of them, but these are the ones that they have actual human beings who've confirmed this. Have shown them documents, videos, security badges for these black sites. All sorts of testimony. And by the way, these people have then gone to Congress and submitted their testimony to Congress, which you can go to prison for lying to Congress. Like, you don't just do that if you don't actually have some facts to back that up. These whistleblowers who've come forward. And the reason they've come forward is because the whistleblower protection laws, they were silenced before that, before the whistleblower protection laws. That's why they're now able to come forward. So Greer makes the point that alien craft, the first of many reasons here the whistleblowers haven't come forward before is because in many cases their lives were threatened. They were told they would be killed if they came forward on the stuff that they saw. They're worried about their family's protection. They're worried about losing their pensions. Many of them signed 80-year non-disclosure agreements. 80-year non-disclosure agreements to keep quiet about it. Greer makes the point that the alien craft we have are not the issue. It's the deep state, the off-the-books operations that is running all of this. They've been they have their own versions of these craft. They're carrying this out, and the White House is kept out of it. Congress has been kept out of it and in the dark about it. And you're starting to hear more of this because now Congress is demanding answers because they're noticing and found out that a lot of these projects are black book. They're not on the money that they approved, and they're demanding answers about it. Good for them. Here's what Stephen Greer says about that.
But this object was retrieved because it became disabled. Some of these retrieval operations are not extraterrestrial, but they would like sometimes the public to think maybe it was, because the bigger secret, I will tell you right now, is not the extraterrestrial issue. It's these technologies, which an unsupervised and frankly illegal operation have, which is a threat to the national security, period. This we will prove. And this is a bigger threat, the existence of these in the hands of unsupervised operations that have escaped the oversight of the President of the Office of the President and the Congress since 1956 to 1960.
And so he then explains the difference between the man-made craft and the ones of extraterrestrial origin, which we've been reverse engineering for years, since the 1940s. And he shows the man-made side by side. So it's important to understand, yes, there are the alien craft that we have. We know that. That's without a doubt. But then we're also been reverse engineering them, and they look close but not totally like them. So here he gives an example of the differences here.
If I had time, I would run through. We can go through very quickly. I think people in the military and in Congress and the American people need to know the difference between the man-made advanced technologies and how they look and the extraterrestrial vehicles. We're going to run through a side-by-side. You can look and see the ET one on the left, seamless. It is actually created in a material science and technology we don't have time to go into, but we understand that, versus the man-made ones that have components, parts, wires, and what have you. Next. And again. Next. and again. And then you hear on the right, that is the Norton Air Force Base 1988 air show, classified. We have a witness who was in there, and these on the right are man-made. They were late Mercury era, 59 through early 60s in their construction, because we had mastered gravity control in October 1954.
So he goes on from there. Now, one of the most explosive whistleblowers is a member of the military, United States Marine. They're decorated United States Marine. U.S. Marine assigned to the Philippines. A platoon of 6 men discovered a UFO. They came across it after the tsunami and subsequent earthquake and then subsequent tsunami in the Philippines and Indonesia. It was being used in some kind of human trafficking operation. And this is where this story gets crazy. This craft was likely a man-made, reverse-engineered craft, off-the-books craft. And this is a stunning story. Even the Daily Mail confirmed this story yesterday. Exclusive. Marine vet breaks 14-year silence to make astonishing claim that his 6-man unit saw a hovering octagonal UFO being loaded with weapons by unmarked U.S. forces who threatened them at gunpoint while serving in Indonesia in 2009. So the Marine is Michael Herrera, and he came forward yesterday for the first time and told us this story. Listen.
Thank you all for being here. What I'm about to tell you hasn't been something that I've disclosed until recently in the help of Dr. Greer, among other people, so I appreciate your help with this. In 2009, my unit, which was most decorated infantry battalion in the entire Marine Corps, which was 2nd Battalion, 5th Marines, was called in to do humanitarian assistance operations out in the Philippines, which was Operation Quetzana. And we flew to the southwestern part of the city, which is Padang. Looked a lot different through satellite imagery that I've recently seen. Back then is a lot different, especially because most of it was decimated, on fire, rubble, flooded, you name it, basically the worst kind of scenario you could ever see. We trekked up about 300 meters. When we got to this high point, I was taking video camera, and I had actually turned to the north, which just kind of slopes down. And right there was something that stuck out like a sore thumb, especially with jungle terrain, things like that, vegetation, very green stuff, was something that stuck out so well. It's always going to be basically imprisoned in my mind for the rest of my life, and it has been for 14 years, was something that was rotating, and it was transitioning between colors like a light matte gray, as well as a dark matte black. You can see that the craft here actually was roughly about 300 feet. And the reason why I know this is because you could fit 3 of the helicopters that we flew in on underneath this craft. And it had an audible hum to it, kind of like a guitar amp if you were to unplug that, or like a transformer. It's very audible. If I was to hear that sound again, I could tell you, okay, it's probably this thing or something similar to that. It's very distinct. And the way that it was floating, which was about 10 or 15, 20 feet off the ground, it was kind of a very eerie thing to see because I've never seen anything like that in my life. When we got up to that point, we were then intercepted by a team of soldiers or rogue military force, if you will. The most concerning thing about this is they all had American dialects. They had American gear. They had OTVs, black. They had black camouflage. They had very similar setups to what we have, but more high speed, something what you would see special operation groups these days have. They had no insignias on. They had no ranks. They had nothing that would signify who they were. They had black ball caps. They had M4A4s that were equipped with ACOGs, which was a step up from what we were currently issued, as well as PEC-16 IR illumination devices that you use for night vision and night patrols, things like that. So we were engaged. We had 8 of them put the drop on us. You could audibly hear them blow the safety selectors off. They basically started screaming at us, telling us what we were doing. We were not allowed to be there. Who were we with? What were we doing there? Threatened that they could kill us right then and there. We could get lost in the jungle. They could throw us out of a helicopter if they needed to. It was very nerve-wracking at that point, especially looking to my fellow Marines and seeing the reactions on their faces too. We were all freaking scared. At that time, there was 4 of these trucks, which were F-350s. They were up-armored. They were pretty beefy. They had weapon cases that I've seen before because of something that we've actually loaded weapons into. They had 2 of them that were in the back of each truck. They also had these containers that was illustrated right here, which come to find out through recent revelations from yesterday from somebody who came forward to Dr. Greer. I don't know who they are, but what they had told him and what he has told me is that this gentleman knows exactly what these were used for, because they had like a cylinder on the front, which is either for oxygen or what I hypothesized was for vacuum sealing, which lead me to suspect that they were smuggling narcotics or drugs. Come to find out, it's more disturbing than that. This gentleman has firsthand account with this and says that it was for people. It's very disheartening, especially because that part of the world have already gotten ravaged, and it's something that is very hard to see right now because of what I've witnessed, and it's very disheartening. And this is why I'm up here.
So human trafficking. So using these craft has nothing to do with aliens. These are reverse engineered from that technology, and these off-the-books people are using this for human trafficking purposes. That's what he saw with his fellow Marines, whose lives were then threatened. So, by the way, I love in the chat when people are like, well, this one person keeps typing it over and over again. Jay Green says, evidence or a testimony is not evidence. Is that true? In a court of law, isn't testimony evidence?
Yeah, but I don't think it's...
But that's not the only thing. We should be clear. I mentioned off the top all of the documents, video evidence, photo evidence, government document proof, eyewitness testimony.
Okay, but what we're seeing along with this testimony right now is drawings.
Right. Well, yeah, exactly. And he also goes on to explain how he filmed it that day. He filmed it. He went back to the base.
Okay. Why don't we get to see that?
I'm telling you. And he had the 6 of the Marines that were there that day all had their cameras and phones taken from them when they got back. He had it in his locker, in his foot locker, with stuff on top of it. And you can watch the full video of this. I had to clip it down. He speaks for 20 minutes. We could be here all night. He clipped it. They took his memory card out, and they took his battery from his camera. So they removed his memory card, took it, and they left it there on top, empty. And so did the other 5 Marines that also were there that day. None of the other Marines in that group had anything taken from them or manipulated. It was the 6 who were there that day that saw that craft.
Yeah.
So so that's that. And then he was told a few days later, in early December, he was back at Camp Hansen in Okinawa, Japan. He was told to report to the office, and where he found an Air Force lieutenant in full uniform but no name tag, and he wouldn't tell him his name. And he starts telling me, you're allowed to talk about what happened. You're not allowed to talk about what happened, not to your chain of command, not even a general, he says to Herrera. You will go to prison or you will die. And he forces him to sign a non-disclosure agreement. And here's what he says about that.
And I have not spoken about it ever since I was able to recently because what the law passed. But that is my account for you guys. This is also an urging for anybody in Washington, D.C. who's a political figure. Please get this under control, because there are people who are either being hurt or killed by this, and it's something that needs to be addressed. Please.
So he specifically was talking about the human trafficking piece of this and them using this technology for all sorts of nefarious reasons that are totally off the books. And these people, these black operators, he's a U.S. Marine, and they're taking his weapons away from him. They're roughing him up. Then he has to sign a non-disclosure agreement as a result of it. Who are these people?
How can he talk now then? Whistleblower protection?
Whistleblower protection. Yeah. So, and he's come forward on that. Next up is Army veteran Stephen Digna. Now, he worked in Death Valley at the live fire facility, and he ended up suffering a brain injury as a result of an explosion. So he started off his testimony by apologizing. He said, I suffered a brain injury due to an explosion at the live fire facility. And so he's like, I need to take things slowly and I need to read off of my notes. So he apologized for that at the beginning of this. He was there that day when a Raytheon craft that he wasn't supposed to see arrived while he was there. Watch his testimony. This is Stephen Digna.
My name is Stephen Michael Digna Jr. The following testimony is true and inaccurate as it can be at this time to the best of my ability, and I am prepared to swear this testimony under oath before the Senate and Congress. I'm a former sergeant in the United States Army. I began active duty service in 1999, and I served until 2002. In July of 2001, I was observing a live fire practice at a level from an observation deck at approximately 3 stories high from the desert floor. I saw a craft in the distance at approximately 200 feet off the ground, measuring approximately 172 feet across, strongly resembling a hovering B-2 Spirit. Once my eyes adjusted, I could make out the general shape of the craft. There were 2 men from Raytheon present. I pulled out my night vision goggles to get a better look. One of the 2 men on the observation deck from Raytheon noticed the night vision goggles I had. He went from chattering cheerfully. They were pretty relaxed. They'd seen these before. It wasn't abnormal to them. He looked at me with a very, very severe look of disapproval and anger that I had. At that point, they both went calmly inside, probably a little bit angry, and it felt as though I had crossed the line. I took another look with my night vision goggles. The reason this event was not reported was due to the fact that it was not unidentified. I'm going to repeat this very clearly to the cameras. This craft was not unidentified. This was on our birds, and to the observer controller that called that out on the range, I'm not going to put his call sign out. Roger up, eyes on, hands on confirmation. That's our bird, but she doesn't need wind to get lift. She was hovering stationary. This was, I'm going to interject here. Sorry, guys. This was very dangerous. This craft showed up unscheduled. I got no notification. My job was to maintain command and control and to be the hub and top observer controller for the Tactical Operation Command Center for Live Fire Desert Warfare. That's the largest live fire warfare center for desert warfare on the planet and in history. So any moving objects that are on that desert floor or in those skies are supposed to be coordinated between myself and another group that I directly worked with the civilian personnel through Raytheon and the United States Air Force.
So everything that's on that base, he is supposed to be aware of and know about. And so these Raytheon guys are there on a regular basis, and they're test flighting this Raytheon craft.
Well, I was going to point out, too, like the whistleblowers, you know, when those guys come forward like this, and we're talking ex-military, and there's 2 guys that corroborate the same story, their lives don't become glamorous because they're whistleblowers. It actually becomes hell.
Yeah.
Right.
You know, so like they're putting their lives, they're putting themselves out there in a big way and possibly ruining their reputation, but they don't care because they want to get this information out. So we have to remember that. It's not like they just all of a sudden it's like, hey, let's do this plan and let's go out and we'll become famous because we'll say this at the same time.
No, most whistleblowers' lives are ruined.
Yeah.
That's the bottom line. You're absolutely right about that. So here's Stephen Digna, whistleblower, who's had his life ruined as a result of it. So remember, he saw this Raytheon craft. He saw the members of Raytheon at his facility that he's in charge of, and he didn't know that they were going to be doing this test flight. They didn't tell him. He's in charge of it. Then, a few days later, he's on leave, and he goes with his wife. He's on leave from the base. They're going to go to the movies. And suddenly, a craft appears as they're driving to the movies. They've now pinpointed the GPS location. He's turned this over to congressional testimony, and here's what happened. And he was abducted. Listen to this. If you think what we just talked about was crazy, this is even crazier.
See was a bright light through all of my windows, and at that exact same time, my car's power steering and the engine's electrical system, everything died, completely died. When I exited the vehicle, I rushed towards the front of the car, believing there was someone pointing a floodlight at us. I had some words to say to that man. I stepped through a thick field of white plasma that encompassed a spheroid craft. As I turned to go inspect the craft, my wife opened the door, and she ran out towards the front of the car, and she was yelling, "Steve, no." She was instantaneously locked in place in a bright white field of plasma. As I looked at her, I thought to myself, it's okay, she's in stasis lock. That plasma enveloped her body with about 6 inches. As this thud resonated my body, I felt my molecular or my cells, maybe the quantum level of my body, feel like it was being resonated. I felt like maybe I'm going to be microwaved or something to that nature. Either way, I seen some bands coming through. I began lifting up off the ground. My vehicle began lifting with me also. As this happened, my body tipped back, and I could see the underbelly of the craft. You're going to see that design right in front of you. The rectangular shape right in the center there looked like a docking socket for an electrical port. And I was staring up at the ceiling, and my vision cued into a very, very bright white light. My vision panned over, and there was my wife flat on her back on a table. It was smaller than the table I was laying on, slightly lowered, and she still had the same exact expression on her face, like she was screaming no. However, she was no longer stuck in the running position. She was flat. So after that had happened, I saw a female right next to me. She was taking some samples from me. It was a human female. She had red hair. She had very fair skin. And after that moment, I also, as I panned over, I could see the window and the desert behind me. I realized we were not in space. I could see the desert floor. I could see the exact two rock formations and one far off in the distance. So this is pinpointed by GPS coordinates.
So the final whistleblower, Eric Hecker, is going to be a guest on our show. I spoke with him today. He worked for Raytheon. He's a Raytheon whistleblower. He worked at the massive military base in Antarctica at the South Pole. He was working at the South Pole Station, and he explains that the base in the South Pole is actually a giant air traffic control tower that monitors all of the interstellar craft that are being operated by humans, as well as non-humans. He explains that when they first fired it up underground, because this is massive, it actually caused the devastation. Well, he doesn't say specifically, but when this happened, when they fired it up for the first time, suddenly there was a massive earthquake in New Zealand, the Christchurch earthquake. And he says he believes that it did cause this earthquake in New Zealand. Watch this.
I have already given all pertinent information and supporting documentation to the Senate Intelligence Committee and ARROW. They informed me that all of my information will be recorded for public record and shared with Congress. It is that important. In 2010, I was selected to go down to the South Pole Station in Antarctica for an entire year by Raytheon Polar Services as an employee of a third-party contractor for the National Science Foundation. I function in a dual-role capacity as a tradesman and a firefighter. My responsibilities required me to be more informed than most of my crew and offered me complete access to the facilities. What I learned from this unique experience needs to be shared with the entire world. The technology at the South Pole Station certainly can do what it is presented as its primary purposes, and unfortunately, much more. The IceCube neutrino detector is presented as a passive listening device for the purposes of the science as presented. But I'm going to skip right through the chase, folks. I have provided documentation that proves that the 5,160, what they call DOMs, that are embedded in the ice can actually transmit at 2,047 volts each. That gives us a long list of things to consider. It is effectively a multifaceted directed energy weapons platform that I will list rapidly a few things that it can do. Vehicle detection. We're learning that these off-world craft, on-world craft, ours or other nations, are also emitting neutrinos. So this makes the South Pole Station effectively an air traffic control station for this new level of equipment that nobody's discussing. In addition to the ability to detect neutrinos and the exotic vehicles, I have provided documentation that shows that this is also a system for faster than light communications. In the past, Gary McKinnon has hacked NASA, found the off-world fleet, the list of captains, and it's apparent that if we have faster-than-light vehicles moving throughout this system, we're going to need faster-than-light communications. This is that facility. Unfortunately, I have other bad news. The season that I was there, 2010 to 2011, we converted from construction to operations and maintenance in both the elevated station and the detector array. Unfortunately, when they first fired it up, that was when we had the earthquakes in Christchurch, New Zealand. There was 2 incidental shots before they were able to target it correctly. This is an earthquake generating device as well. This is the weapons of war that we have to deal with now and what Raytheon's hiding. I witnessed myself a very powerful green laser shooting out of the top of this facility into the cosmos. This, I believe, is a secondary form of long-range communications and or a defense system. I am not saying that we need to be scared of anything that's out there, but please understand the military-industrial complex is happy to invest all of your money in alleviating their fears.
And that, to me, is the bottom line, right?
Yeah.
So they're happy to take all of your billions, make you scared of something, make you scared of some nefarious, whatever, fake alien invasion, and lie to you about it, when in fact we've been doing it for 80 years, 60 years, 70 years of reverse engineering these craft. And what's at really the heart of it is the military-industrial complex, and it's the deep state that wants to continue these nefarious projects. And finally, there are a ton of crimes being committed here, and we shouldn't lose sight of that. So wherever you come down on this story, it doesn't really matter. People's lives have been ruined, and massive crimes have been committed here. So they brought up the attorney who is now going to start, and this is going to be amazing, actually, because if they start to bring a bevy of lawsuits against Raytheon, the United States government, Boeing, Northrop Grumman, it's going to be unbelievable to see how this stuff comes out through discovery process and what we learn as these prosecutions start to move forward. Listen to what the attorney says the crimes have been committed in this. Watch.
Just a small sample, and I know we're short for time, of the crimes that are directly related to this issue. Disclosure Project witnesses have and gathered intelligence has established the following major crimes: treason against the United States of America, murder, mass murder, torture, kidnapping and abduction, embezzlement of government funds, embezzlement of private funds, bank fraud, money laundering, illegal surveillance, insubordination and insurrection against the United States, false imprisonment, witness and whistleblower intimidation, theft of intellectual property, trespassing, burglary, framing of innocent people, government corruption, blackmail, bribery, and illegal use of the government and military property, and many, many more crimes.
So
Okay, let's stop right there so I can get into the lesson. Woo! Wow. Is that interesting or what? So look how corrupted the banks really are. Because banks, they know what's going on as well, right? Now you can see why they want us to go into that CBDC, system program, right? All right, I want to go to Matthew. I want to see what the Bible says, right? Because we Hebrew Israelites, we use the name of Yahweh Shem Yahushua, and through the Holy Spirit, we reveal, right, the wickedness of this world. I want to go to Matthew chapter 24, verse 20. But pray ye that your flight be not, let me hit this, in the winter, neither on the Sabbath day, right? Because, if you so-called Negros Latinos, American speckled birds, are not paying attention, a second shutdown is going to come, okay? And this time they're talking about that the lights are going to go out and no food. And what a coincidence that the lights will go out, because they want everyone to look up into the sky, right? For what? Let's find out with Scripture. Verse 21, for then shall be great tribulation, such as was not since, let me hit this, the beginning of the world, to this time, nor it ever, shall be. Verse 22, and except those days should be shortened, there should no flesh be saved. Wow. Now we can see, AI is going to be involved in this, okay? But for the elect's sake, those days shall be shortened. The elect's sake, right? Because the Bible talks about that there's going to be 144,000 chosen elect and 1/3. I pray and hope that I'll be part of the elect, as well as the archons in the camp of lion den and the elder as well, okay? But you can see why the Edomites have been for many years getting ready, because they know what's coming. Okay? And they know that those who are going to be chosen to be the elect are going to be awakened. They're going to get hit and going to receive the new spiritual superpower bodies. Right? And they're going to go like, what's that in the Bible? Jeremiah chapter 16:16. Right? They're going to turn into hunters. Right? Worse than the movie Predator. Let me move on to verse 23. Then if any man shall say unto you, Lord, here is Christ, right? As the scripture is here saying it, or there believe it not. What a coincidence that the scripture is written Christ. Why? Because wouldn't it be these so-called UFOs that the Edomites have been creating, inventing, to have a man tall with blue eyes, long blonde hair, right, with a long garment and high heels, saying, here I am, right? How many of you that go to the Christian churches, the so-called Negros, Latino, American, and speckled birds, are going to fall for it and going to say, you see, it is a blue eye with long blonde hair, huh? Hey, but we Hebrew Israelites, in the name of Yahweh Shai, we will not be deceived. Verse 24. For there shall arise false Christs and false prophets, and shall show great signs and wonders, inasmuch that, Slakia, let me hit this. And as much that if it were possible, they shall deceive the very elect. But it ain't going to be possible. It's going to be impossible. I want to jump to verse 29. Immediately after the tribulation of those days shall the sun be darkened, and the moon shall not give her light, and the stars shall fall from heaven, and the power of the heavens shall be shaken. Woo! All hell's going to break loose. This second shutdown is going to get real ugly. What those stars are? Those atomic missiles that Russia and China and other countries are aiming to America. And let me remind you that behind those missiles that everyone in the world is going to see in the air, in the sky, guess what else they're going to see? The real so-called UFOs that the Bible really calls them chariots or clouds. Okay? And they're going to be zapping left and right those fake imposters of UFOs. Right? Just like the fake imposters of the 501c3 incorporated churches. The people in the churches, so-called Negros, Latinos, American speckled birds, 2/3 of them, and the Edomites, children and babies. Okay? It's going to get ugly. Verse 31. Let me hit this. And he shall send his angels with a great sound of a trumpet. Yeah, that could be like what they use, Jake used out here, like boombox, but probably bigger. And they shall gather together his elect from the four winds, from one end of heaven to the other. Woo! It's going to get real hot. I want to go to 1 Thessalonians. Give me a minute. Boy, that's a lot of information on that video. Chapter 4, verse 16. Give me a minute. For Yahweh Shai himself shall descend from heaven with a shout, with a voice of the archangel, and with the trump of Yahweh, and the dead in Yahweh Shai shall rise first. Yeah. Because, the Edomites are getting ready for the second shutdown, and they're going to, come after us, right? The Hebrew Israelites. Some of us are going to be thrown to FEMA camp. Some of us are going to be beheaded, right? Some of us are just going to be killed on the spot, right? Verse 17. Then we which are alive remain shall be caught up together with them in the what? In the clouds. Woo! There we go. To meet Yahweh in the air, and so shall we ever be with Yahweh. See, this is what they don't want you to learn, to know, because the Christian 501c3 incorporated churches won't talk about this, because the Spirit is not with them to begin with, right? And since they took a contract, right, they took the bag, they got to muzzle their mouth, okay? Verse 18, wherefore comfort one another with these words. Let's go to Revelation. Revelation. Well, I get goosebumps just reading this. Revelation chapter 1, verse 7. Behold, he comes with clouds. Woo! Now, Yahushua is going to come with a host of angels. Get ready. And every eye shall see him, and they also which pierce him, all kindreds of the earth shall wail because of him. Yeah. You know, I said in the past in my lessons to the Edomites, this should be, when they're working out, they should be practicing how to run and change, have with them diapers or Pampers. When they're running, how to change their diapers or Pampers so when they pee and poop, what they're about to see. The real so-called UFOs. Humongous. Okay? Immense. All right? Hosts of angels. And that word host means militant, army, by the way. I want to go to verse 8. I am the Alpha and the Omega, the beginning and the end, said Yahweh Shai, which is and which was and which is to come, the Almighty. Yeah, he's going to come to kick ass. Okay, to remove this wicked kingdom, to remove the Edomites from power, to take away the blessing that was given to Esau, right? To put them back into slavery for 1,000 years. So they're getting ready. The Edomites are getting ready, and that's good, right? But look how many people have been kidnapping throughout the years. You know, they have shown before, you can look it up, underground cities, right? That the Edomites have. So you can see why they're kidnapping so many people, you know, around the world, to have them as slaves and to keep on doing their child sacrifice, right? Which YouTubes are popping up left and right, right? And also to keep the trafficking of what they're doing, raping, you know, men and women, boys and children, you know, girls, Slakia. Okay, let me go to Hebrew, chapter 1, verse 7. And of the angels he said, who makes his angels spirit and his ministers a flame of fire? Yeah, right? When Yahweh sent his son out to create everything, it was Yahweh Shai who created all these things, right? Let's see what the scripture says. Verse 8, but unto the Son he said, thy throne, O Yahweh, is forever and ever. A scepter of righteousness is the scepter of thy kingdom. Yeah. You know, when a father has a business and he has a son, he's going to send his son out to build the business somewhere else, right? He said, go over here, now that I have taught you, and build me another business, another kingdom. Let's go to verse 9. Thou hast loved righteousness and hate iniquity. Therefore, Yahweh, even thy God, hath anointed thee with the oil of gladness above thy fellow. Verse 10. And thou, Yahweh Shai, in the beginning hast laid the foundation of the earth and the heavens and the work of thy hands. Verse 11. They shall perish, but thou remains, and they all shall wax old as do a garment. Yeah, we all get old and die, right? Those who are allowed to get old and die, by the way. Verse 12. And as a vesture shalt thou fold them up, and they shall be changed, but thou art the same, and thy years shall not fail. Yeah. When we get those new spiritual bodies, we're never going to get old. We're never going to die. We're never going to get sick. And we're going to be doing the same thing that Yahweh Shai can do. Fly, heal people. It's like I heal people. Okay? It's going to be beautiful. Verse 13. But to which of the angels sit he at any time? Sit on my right hand until I make thy enemies thy footstool. Yeah. Who? Oh, Yahweh Shai. And he's coming back. Meaner than a pit bull. I want to go to Psalm. He is pissed. Psalm 110. Wow, that's a lot of information. That video popped out. Verse 1. Yahweh said unto my Yahweh Shai, sit thou at my right hand until I make thy enemies thy footstool. Verse 2. Yahweh shall send the rod of thy strength out of Zion, of Israel. Rule thou in the midst of thy enemies. So you can see why the Edomites around the world are getting ready, and why they build these fake flying saucers, because they want to deceive the mass. Okay? That's what they want to do. And why they want to deceive them? What purpose? What is it they're going to introduce in doing that? Well, in the second shutdown, and also now you can understand why they're doing the CBDC system, because they have to control everyone, okay? So they can implement the what? That's right, the C-hit. You see? They have to put it inside of you so they can control you, to have you turn against Yahweh Shem Yahweh Shai, you so-called Negros, Latinos, Native Americans, and speckled birds. But 2/3 are going to go for this fake UFOs. Saying, oh, look, these are the ones, these are the real ones, you see? You see? Let's go and do what they say. Well, go for it. Romans chapter 11, verse 26. And so all Israel shall be saved, as it is written, these shall come out of Zion, the deliverer, and shall turn away ungodliness from Jacob. Yep, that's going to be the 2/3. In verse 27, so this is my covenant unto them, when I shall take away their sins. Yeah, accordingly. Okay? Because Yahweh Shem Yahweh controls everything. Wickedness and righteousness. Okay? And he decides who the 2/3 are going to be. They need to get burned and come back to the new kingdom as babies. Okay? And who's going to receive salvation, which is 144,000 and 1/3. Moving on to Isaiah chapter 66, verse 15. For behold, Yahweh will come with fire, ooh, and with his chariots like a whirlwind, to render his anger and fury and his rebuke with flames of fire. Yeah. If you thought that Russia and China and other countries with their sonic missiles are going to be the only ones burning America, no. When Yahweh turns loose Yahweh Shai with the host of angels, they too, with the chariots, are going to be zapping left and right, disintegrating this country because of the wickedness. They're going to show the whole world what true power is and how you clean wickedness from the face of the earth. Verse 16. For by fire and by his sword will Yahweh plead all flesh, and the slaying of the Yahweh shall be many. Yeah. Made me squeak my throat there for a minute. Okay, because that's serious. It's going to get real ugly. I want to go to Proverbs. Chapter 10, verse 14. Wise men lay up knowledge, but the mouth of a foolish is near destruction. Yeah. You know, the Edomites are so prideful. They're so wise of the flesh, not in the spirit, that they truly believe that with the technology that Yahweh Bashin Yahshua has given them, they truly believe that they can kill Yahweh Shai again. It ain't going to happen. So I leave it with Proverbs 16, chapter 16, Slakia, verse 18. Give me a minute, I'm looking for it. Pride goes before destruction, and haughty spirit before a fall. When you look up haughty, arrogant, superior, and disdainful. Okay? So, they're getting ready. The reason that they're allowing these people to come and announce it on TV, on YouTube, Slakia, is because we are closer than what we thought. Okay? I hope that this was edifying. And with that, I'll say, Shalom.